And now it's time for our next person here on stage. It will be freelancer, game writer, Morten Brunbjerg, and he will be talking about narrative themes. And afterwards, the presentation, he will be inviting to conversation and questions within the audience. So gather around, we have something very exciting here, something interactive, if you would say. The stage is yours, Morten.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. In 2006, that's many years ago, I lived in New Zealand in 2006, and I was trying to make my way as a non-fiction writer, dreaming about becoming a fiction writer. And then one day, the company I worked for went bankrupt, and so there I was on the other side of the earth with no money. And I started instead to write that novel I always wanted to write. Now I had lots of time. And so the last couple of months I was there, I was very poor and very happy, so it was sort of a foreshadowing of ending up in the games industry, I guess. While I was down there, another day, an iceberg arrived at the east coast of the South Island. And this is a very rare thing. Prior to 2006, the last time an iceberg arrived was in 1931. So everyone was gathering, taking pictures of this iceberg, and it was a big deal. And there I was standing, looking at this amazing thing, and it's really big. And I was imagining what would be below the surface. And I stood there writing my first real novel, being poor, and I thought, this is a great metaphor for storytelling, and this is a great metaphor for themes. Iceberg storytelling, how great is this? Amazing metaphor. I wrote my novel, I went back home, and I lived happily for many years until another day I realized there was a book already published called Death in the Afternoon. Does anyone know who wrote that book? It's a relatively unknown writer called Ernest Hemingway. And he already coined iceberg storytelling in this book. And he described his writing style in this book as an iceberg where the bulk of the story's substance lies beneath the surface, implied rather than explicitly detailed. And I thought, damn, someone already did this. And when was this book published? That was published in 1932, 1 year after the last occurrence of an iceberg in New Zealand. So I was thinking, maybe he stood there at the East Coast, it was the same place it arrived, and he looked at the iceberg, and I got the same idea as Hemingway had years before me. I would love to think that, but Hemingway was never in New Zealand. Never happened. And so real stories often have no point, and should I really have opened with this? But the metaphor is way better now because it's not mine. This is Hemingway's. It's amazing. It's an amazing writing advice. But Hemingway did not write video games, and we are working with video games. So I have tweaked this writing advice to fit our industry. Before talking about how we find a theme and how the questions we need to ask, a few words of what a theme is not. Well, the thing is, in my opinion at least, a theme is not a single word. These are all great topics and can certainly be extremely important, but I don't think they're themes as such. They're perhaps sub-themes. A theme should imply some kind of conflict, I feel. So, when I ask my fellow writers what a theme is, I get a lot of different answers. But they all seem to circle around the same area. We seem to circle around an area that is something fuzzy and something inside of us. So a theme is not getting from point A to point B, or kill all the zombies, or conquer the most land. These are stories or gameplay, and they work great with that. But it has to be something internally. And the experts, the gurus, these are some of the gurus, they're saying the same thing. They're all circling around the same area. Right. So, in my opinion, a game theme should have conflict. So, all games have conflict, or there'll be no gameplay, and all stories have conflict, or there'll be no story. And the resolution of this conflict is the end of the story, or the way you beat the game. And when phrasing our themes, I always try to use keywords like this. Keywords that have conflict within them, breaking out of, escaping, all these things. And I'll give you a trick to identify your story and your theme in just a moment. But before that, I also want to touch on recurring thematics. And this is connected to the keywords I talked about earlier. These are not themes, these are topics. Because when you start discussing in your studio what the theme really is of the game and the story we're working on, a lot of things are going to pop up, a lot of keywords. And don't throw them away, just write them down, because they will all be related to your theme. But what I mean with recurring, this is like a sort of a hack. Because we add meaning to recurring things and we put them into the thematic context. So let's say we're working on a game that takes place in a big city with lots of androids in it, and the theme could be artificial life versus nature, for instance. And we play this game, and at some point in this city, a fox pops up. Doesn't do anything, just looks at you and then runs off. Then you see it somewhere later, a second time. It pops up a third time, and now your mind starts to think, what is this fox? What does it mean? And maybe your brain is not consciously aware of this, but you're starting to subconsciously look for the theme and the deeper meaning in the game, simply by taking an object, or could be a line of dialogue as well, and just repeating it. And this is what some of these keywords are great for, to enhance the theme. And we get that for free. Well, nothing is free in video games, but almost. And why go through all this trouble and all these discussions? It's because of resonance. This is what will make your game stand out. This is what will make people talk about your game and remember your game. Will make the game live in the mind of your players long after they turn off whatever device it's on. And that makes them talk about it. And the more they talk about it, the more copies you're likely to sell. So, finding your theme, there are two easy questions you can ask to identify theme and story. And what your protagonist need, that will be the theme. And what your protagonist wants, that will be the story. It's as simple as that. So a few examples on how to use this. This is Hi-Fi Rush. It's a game I had the pleasure of working on, and it was really fun. This is Chai. All he wants in life is to become a rock star. And everything that happens in the game springs from that simple want. Nothing that happens in the game would have happened for Chai if it hasn't been for that simple want. So that's the story. That's where the story comes from. But he can't do this alone. He thinks he can, but he can't. So what he needs is friends and a place to belong. And by having that as a theme, we are showing that even rock stars get nowhere alone. Another way to put it could be that we have a theme that could be individual glory as opposed to teamwork, for instance. Another franchise, which I did not work on, is the Last of Us. Now it's a whole franchise and TV shows and everything. And if you look at the whole franchise as a whole, not necessarily individual installments, I've heard a lot of people talk about revenge, and revenge is certainly a topic that comes up again and again in The Last of Us. But in my personal opinion, that is not the theme. That is one of the great topics in there. When I look at the whole franchise, I think The Last of Us is about physical survival versus survival of the soul. And I'm not talking about the religious soul. I'm talking about our humanity, our morals, our ethics, our compassion. So on one side, will I survive this as an organism? Can I not die, please? And on the other side, well, can I survive this as a human being? I think that is the theme that goes all the way through this and are overarching everything else. Now, what can you practically use this for in your game when you identify themes and keywords? All right. Well, I've made a flowchart for you. And it's a very simple flowchart. It's a guide to the trash can. So once you identified your theme and an idea pops up and you want to know if you can put this in your game, then you ask, does this support my overarching theme or not? And if it does support your theme, you put it in the game. But if it doesn't support your theme, well, you know what to do with it. And, well, game development is a pretty dynamic process. I realize that. So you also have to, of course, think about, well, if we keep coming up with ideas that does not support this theme, is our theme wrong? Are we really making another game than we thought we were making? Maybe we should go back and readjust that theme. But if you're staying on the theme and keep thinking this is the right thing to do, well, then you have to readjust the idea or throw it away. Okay. So this is it in a nutshell. I'm not going to pile anything on top of this because it's really simple, and it needs to be really simple because these are some of the fundamental things. This is just another tool you can use, like the game pillars, to identify what is actually happening in my game. So these are some of the things we talked about. This will be the one to take a photo of if you think I said anything that makes any sense in this. So themes are not single words. Use a lot of conflict when you put in your theme. I think that rhymes very well with a game, with exciting gameplay and conflict in gameplay. And remember, we add meaning to recurring events. If you don't know what you're doing, just put something recurring in there and people will add meaning to it. I never said that. So, and the want, that is the story. The need, that is the theme. And trash what doesn't support your theme, because if you do that, you'll end up with a coherent game that never wavers away from that basic storytelling thematic. And your theme is a production compass, very much in the same way the tool of the game pillars is. And that is all I'm going to say in this. So in a second, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Or otherwise, we'll just sit down and have a short conversation. But for now, thank you for listening.
Before we give it to the audience, I really have to ask, what was the title of the novel you were writing when you saw the Iceberg, and was the theme of the novel?
The novel is called Glacier, and it's about a Danish tourist who falls into a glacial crevasse on Fox Glacier in New Zealand, which is on the South Island. And I had the pleasure of wandering on that glacier, which was a great experience. And sometimes you're scaling across and looking down. It's not wide enough for me to fall in, but I looked down like a crevasse like this, and it just kept going white into dark blue, into dark green, into blackness. And it was just terrifying. And the theme of the novel is the classic thing about that. I think there's a Nietzsche quote that says, if you look deep into abyss, the abyss will look back into you. So it's a story about her coming to terms with her past while in deep in the ice and escaping that. So yeah.
Awesome. Are there any questions from the audience? Come on, don't be shy.
And we, of course, do it by raising hands. So we'll come down to you with a microphone.
That's because I am being so clear.
Obviously,
yes.
Right? I mean, any questions? Everyone? Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so funnily enough, the other day I was actually watching a YouTube video about themes as well.
Sure.
Who also mentioned that theme is not just one word. He suggested phrasing your theme as a question. The example from the YouTube video was like, justice is not a theme, but is it ever justifiable to murder another human being could be a theme. So what do you think about that approach, like phrasing your theme specifically as a question?
I think that could work just as well. I think we all need to find our own way and what works for us. So the process I took you through today, that is what works for me personally. I do like that there is some kind of conflict in it, and if it a question of is it ever justifiable to take another human's life, that is certainly a question with where we can imagine where it's going. I think one of the reasons I like setting it up with conflict like this is because I also really love for the game to have some kind of physical representation of the theme. And that is very possible you can do that as well with a question formulated like the one you said. But for instance, in a game I worked on, we realized the theme was breaking out of circles, where circles being the main word. And as soon as we knew that, we started putting circles everywhere into this game. The windows are circular. The bed she's sleeping in is a circle. The energy UI is a circle. And once you know that theme, you can put it in everywhere. And for me personally, that works better if I formulate a theme with some kind of conflict or two opposing values compared to a question. But I'm sure you could do it anyway. So that being the answer. Yeah.
Should I put it
down?
You better go for it. Yes.
Further questions?
All right, then I have one. So now, actually, also according to the question that you asked for, how do you look upon ethics when you are doing what you're doing with game writing? According to now that you mentioned stuff like killing and stuff, more like serious topics as well. How do you juggle ethics into what you do?
That is a great question. And I think a lot of things have happened. I started out writing video games 13 years ago. And especially on this front, a lot has happened since. Not only with representation of all kinds of different people and in video games, but sometimes it can be really stressful as a writer to figure out what kind of responsibility do I really have here. Is it my sole responsibility as a writer to bring all of this to the top? So I think the way I handle it is very much the Iceberg storytelling way, that I try to put these things in the game, but I'm keeping it as much as I can below the surface, because otherwise it feels like yelling. And if I yell in the face of people, I don't know about you, but I tend to not listen when people do that. And I feel the same way about storytelling. We can't be too explicit about it. We have to sort of keep it under the surface. I don't know if that is a satisfactory answer, because every project would be very different depending on the question. In another game I worked on, we had a Holocaust metaphor, and we didn't really realize what it was until we were in the middle of it. It's, oh my God, this is what it is. And all of a sudden the whole mood changes, and you start treating it with a lot more respect. But you have to realize what it is you're doing. And sometimes, and I think that's some of the misunderstandings that is happening. At the moment in the games industry, it is when people are doing something because they think this is cool and this is fun, and they really don't have any, any evil intentions. They just simply didn't realize what they were doing, and now all of a sudden it's out there, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, what did we do?" They didn't see clearly what it was there. So yeah.
And when that happens, what do you think about responsibility, for example, for your story writing?
I think we have a huge responsibility as content creators to be aware of this. But we really also need everyone on the team to be aware, because everyone can't be 100% aware all the time. So I think the responsibility is on us. But I do also miss a little bit of understanding from the other side, where you ask, wait a minute, did you really mean this? Or was that just because you didn't think it through? Give people just a chance to say, man, we screwed up. We're really sorry. We didn't think about this aspect. We don't see that a lot. I'm sure it's a balancing issue that'll show up. Yeah, but it's a tender topic.
It definitely is, and also due to changing times. Anybody else having a question?
Any more questions from the audience? Okay, I'll have another one then. I'm currently having a game idea that it's supposed to be a game about letting go, but letting go is not a theme, right? It would be maybe letting go or holding on to things. Is that like a theme?
Well, there's a whole song about it.
Which one?
A Disney song.
What?
No.
Oh.
Well, I would. So if you hired me, I would say this is a really good topic, but I think it needs something more, because there's a lot of things implied in letting go. But what is letting go? Is it letting go of sorrow after loss, for instance? Or is it letting go of your dreams because you realize they're unrealistic? Is it the opposite? Is it letting go of your job and following your dreams? It's a very ambiguous thing. And I'm asking, what is it opposed to? What is the opposite of letting go? That is cramping, holding on for dear life to something. And again, it's implied that when we do that, we're not living life. We're being, static, and static is never good. So I would be looking in that direction, because that would give you a contrast, and that would make it easier to make a physical representation of this in the game, and be more on point in storytelling on what you actually want to say. Of letting go and falling asleep, that's also a thing. Right? It can be so many things.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question as well. I can hear. So now that there probably are a lot of people in the industry as well, also to new game writers or people that want to become game writers, what is your point of view on assistive devices like AI, for example? Do you have any tips for new game writers on how to use new technologies?
I think first of all, there's no question that it's here to stay, and I think we need to roll with it and we need to use it. If we resist as writers on the AI tools that we are given, then we're just missing out on our chances to shape it. And then it will happen to us instead of being a part of it. So first of all, that's my opinion on that. I think we need to involve ourselves instead of trying to stop it. I have used AI ever since before ChatGPT, just because I simply was very fascinated with it. And I'm a freelancer, and I'm working remotely a lot, so I'm sitting in my office alone. And it's simple rubber ducking, having someone just to bounce ideas from, no matter really if the output it gives me is good or not judging that quality, just having an AI that I know I need to explain what my actual problem is. Just that process often makes it easier to figure out. My experience is that AI is not really good at storytelling yet. One of the things it's really, really good at is taking a conversation that you already wrote, and you feed it in there, and you ask it to, could you perhaps make, let's say, these characters sound like they were 1970s street kids. It's really good at that. And usually I always need to go through it again and take something out, because it's too much. It's like, it's all over the place. It's like, let me take this thing you're asking me and just like, bam. So we need to dial it down a little bit. So yeah, that's really good at that. So right now I think we need to play it on its strengths. Yeah.
Are there more questions by the audience? Please don't be shy. Ask all your questions that you might have about themes, stories even, writing. Anything coming up? Okay, one more by myself, I'd say. What is your stance on multiple themes? I'm sure one can like try to do that, but is it a good idea to like...
You said multiple themes?
Multiple themes, yeah.
Right. I guess it depends on how you're building your game. Let's say you have loads of different protagonists. That is a situation where I maybe would be considering it. Otherwise, I would say don't do it. Have that vision and stay with your theme and work it all the way through. And even if you have 5 different protagonists, have them go through all kinds of different shades of this theme. Let them explore all kind of different directions on this. Is it okay ever to take a human life? Well, if we have different protagonists, some of them will agree with that it is okay, and so some will not, and some will just do it, and then you can explore all kinds of different things. I just really feel that this is something that helps streamline the storytelling and make it clear both for players and, by the way, publishers, when you pitch it, what is this really about underneath everything else, underneath the surface? What is it really about? What is the bottom of that iceberg that keeps everything in balance and looking great on top? And it's invisible, right? But this is what this is really about. Don't tell anyone that thing. Yeah, I would.
So having multiple themes would basically be like having multiple stories.
I would say that. It's like, think about it as an anthology of, let's say, short stories. That the really great ones are not just here and there and everywhere. They are all sort of, you feel when you're done with it, yes, I read 10 different stories, but they are all sort of circling around the same thing. And I think that's what gives it that resonance that I mentioned earlier. That's what makes it stay. Otherwise, it's just, oh, that was interesting. Oh, another interesting experience. It's everywhere. And isolated, they're probably great. But this will keep everything together. That's my advice.
Thank you.
I think we're running out of time now. If anyone want to talk to me in person, just come and talk to me after, or stop me in the hallways. Anything more we need to say?
No, I think you covered it pretty good, actually.
Okay, that's good.
So give a round of applause for Morten.
Thanks.
and we will be back after a short break.